vote total in the history of the city, and we choose the mayor from inside the city council. The council picks the mayor from within the 7 of us. When I was reelected with such a high vote, the council chose me as mayor, 5 Democrats, 2 Greens, and they ended up voting all for me. One of the most interesting things that we did, now obviously as an environmental party, as an environmentally oriented city, it was easy to do some green things. We were the first city to go on 100% renewable energy for all of our municipal facilities, for example. But one of the places that I used my political capital was on the following. Santa Monica is next to the beach, and we have several luxury hotels. The workers in those hotels are mostly Latin American immigrants, mostly women, underpaid. So we have a tax on each hotel room of about 14%, and we make about $20 million just in our small city of 93,000 people, excuse me. And what I argued, and other people in the city council argued, is that we should not be paying for our parks and our police and our social services on the backs of underpaid, exploited immigrant labor. That was a social justice issue. And we ended up passing the first private sector living wage ordinance in the country for the businesses over a certain size that were doing a certain level of business. So these very expensive hotels that were charging between $300 and $800 a night, $300 to $800 a night, at least needed to be paying the workers a living wage and give them health care, and not displacing those costs onto the public and onto the tax roll. And that was one of the things that we did when I was mayor, which then again broadens the idea that green isn't just about environment, but it's about social justice and it's about a fair economy. So that's, if we had had proportional representation in California, I would have easily been elected to the state legislature afterwards. And even though California is further ahead than any other state on climate change issues today, we're still 15 or 20 years behind where we would have been if we had proportional representation, because then what would have happened is Greens would have gotten elected, the Democrats would have lost power, and they would have realized they have to start doing these issues earlier. So it's nice that it's happening, but it's happening slower. The same thing, we would have had more women much earlier, we would have had much more diversity in our society, we would have had younger people. And in 2018, I ran for Secretary of State of California, which is the chief elections official, to promote proportional representation. And where I'll close on that point is that just recently, just 2 or 3 days ago, the Supreme Court ruled on what is called a gerrymandering issue. Gerrymandering, it's amazing you know that term. It's a very American-specific term named after an individual person around the following idea, that if this area is a state and all the people are in there, depending on how you draw the lines, you can affect which party is going to win more seats. You can draw to put a lot of people in from one party into one place and then make the rest of the state easy for the other party, or vice versa. And that's because we use the British system, where there's only one seat elected at a time. It's been shown that when the Democrats control the legislature, they draw the lines to benefit themselves, and when the Republicans control the legislature, they draw the lines to benefit themselves. It just went to the Supreme Court, and this new conservative Supreme Court said, we don't have jurisdiction on this issue. We're not going to touch this. Which means every state now is just going to fight as hard as they can, because every 10 years we do a census. We count all the people in the country, and then we draw new districts. And now, with a census happening in 2020, after that in 2022, there will be new district lines drawn. The answer is not this crazy system where one group gets representation and nobody else does, but to do a proportional system. So this is a chance for the Green Party now to be looking at the Supreme Court ruling and saying, the answer, if the Supreme Court won't deal with gerrymandering, is to change our electoral system to a more fair one. So hopefully that's going to happen. And the one thing I will close on that point in terms of the chances of us getting that, Earlier, I mentioned that system called ranked choice voting, where you can rank the choices 1, 2, 3, 4. If your first choice doesn't win, your vote goes to your second choice, etc., until somebody gets a majority. We have started on the municipal level arguing for that change, and we have many cities around the country who have adopted that, including San Francisco, one of the more important cities in the country. The entire state of Maine has adopted that reform. That's a reform that can also be used for proportional representation. So we're starting to actually see some progress, and there's some real hope for that. So on that note of hope, let's go ahead and take some questions.